Okay, if you're a dog owner, you have definitely seen this. You're out for a walk, everything's normal, and then your dog just stops, lowers their head, and starts munching on the lawn like it's a salad bar. It's one of those weird things that makes you wonder what on earth is going on in their head. So let's actually dig into that. Let's find out what's really happening here.
I mean, it's the big question, right? Why do they do it? Are they hungry? Is something wrong? Is it just some weird dog thing? For years, we've just had these old wives' tales and guesses to go on, which has led to a lot of popular theories.
And you've probably heard all of these before. The number one theory, for sure, is that they feel sick and they're eating grass to, make themselves throw up. Or maybe they need more nutrients, maybe some fiber. Or hey, maybe it's just a weird habit with no explanation. But what if we could actually separate the myths from the real science? What does the actual evidence have to say?
Right, so to get past all the guessing, we need some hard data. And what's kind of wild is that even though dogs have been doing this forever, nobody really studied it scientifically until pretty recently. So let's take a look at the first real attempt to get some solid answers.
And this was a huge deal. For the first time ever, scientists at the University of New England in Australia decided to run a proper, controlled experiment. So instead of just asking people what they thought was happening, they set up a study to watch the dogs directly and look for real patterns.
The way they set it up was actually pretty simple, but really smart. They got 12 healthy dogs. All of them were known grass eaters, and they just watched them for 6 days. They had a couple of different types of grass available, but here's the key variable. They played around with the timing of their main meal. They wanted to see if hunger had anything to do with it.
Okay, so with that simple setup, they could finally put that biggest, most common belief about grass eating to the test. So let's put the myth head-to-head with the data they collected.
All right, here it is, the big one. Dogs eat grass to make themselves vomit. We have all heard this. It kind of makes sense, right? A dog feels a bit queasy, so it instinctively eats something to clear its stomach. It sounds plausible, but the numbers from the study tell a totally different story.
Just look at this number. In the entire study, they saw dogs eat grass 709 times. And out of all those times, vomiting happened just 5 times. 5! That's less than 1%. This single piece of data really blows a huge hole in the whole "they do it to throw up" theory. And it's not just that. Here's the other side of it. It's not like they rarely vomit after eating grass. It turns out most of the dogs weren't even sick before they started eating it. Other studies show that less than 10% of dogs show any signs of being unwell beforehand. The vast majority feel perfectly fine, which makes it pretty clear they're not using grass as medicine.
So, if it's not about feeling sick, then what is the real reason? If we can pretty much set aside the upset stomach idea for most dogs, what did the study actually find was driving this whole thing?
Well, this chart right here shows the single biggest clue from the experiment. The scientists found a massive difference in behavior based on one simple thing: whether or not the dog had eaten its main meal yet. As you can see, the amount of time they spent eating grass was way higher before their meal. So what does this all point to? Well, it seems to be about hunger, or at least being full. The hungrier the dogs were, the more grass they ate. So the study's main conclusion was pretty straightforward. Dogs might just see grass as, well, food. Maybe like a little appetizer to tide them over until the main course shows up.
But, it's rarely just one thing, right? Hunger is clearly a huge part of the puzzle, but it's not the whole story. Animal behaviors will tell you that grass eating is actually pretty complex. There's probably a whole mix of things going on that gives us a much more complete picture.
Yeah, it's most likely a combination of different factors. You've got this deep ancestral instinct kicking in. There's the idea that they might be looking for a bit of extra fiber. Sometimes it could just be a way to deal with boredom or even anxiety. And then there's the simplest reason of all, one we probably overlook. Maybe they just like it. And this contrast is really cool to think about. On one hand, you've got this ancient instinct. The ancestors of our dogs, wild canids, would eat their prey whole, including the stomach, which was often full of plants and grass. It was just a natural way to get some fiber. But on the other hand, fast forward to today, and for our modern dogs, it can be a totally different thing. It could be psychological. A bored dog in a backyard with nothing to do might start grazing just to have something to do.
And after all the science and all the behavioral theories, sometimes we just have to remember that the simplest answer might be the right one. I mean, think about it. Especially in the spring when the grass is new and fresh, maybe some dogs just really enjoy the taste and the texture. For a perfectly healthy, happy dog,
It might not be any more complicated than that. It's just a nice snack.
Okay, so we know it's usually totally normal. But I get it. As a dog owner, you still want to know, when should I actually worry? When does this common little habit cross the line into something I should be concerned about? Let's break down some practical advice.
So the most important thing here is to know the difference between just a casual habit and a real compulsion. A dog that nibbles on some grass in the yard every now and then, totally normal. But a dog that is obsessively eating non-food stuff, well, that's a whole different ballgame.
And that compulsive behavior actually has a name: Pica. It's a rare disorder where dogs feel this drive to eat things that are not food, like rocks or cloth or dirt. It usually points to a much deeper medical or behavioral problem. But let me be clear, your dog's casual grass-eating habit is almost never a sign of Pica.
See, the grass itself is rarely the problem. The real danger is what might be on the grass. Think about it. Lawns are often treated with all kinds of chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, that can be really toxic if your dog eats them. And the soil itself can have intestinal parasites that your dog could pick up while they're grazing. So here's your simple checklist for when it's time to actually call your vet. 1. If the grass eating is followed by frequent vomiting, not just a one-off thing. 2. If you notice a sudden big increase in how much grass they're eating. 3. If you see other symptoms, like they're lethargic, have diarrhea, or they've lost their appetite. And finally, 4. If you know or even suspect the lawn was recently treated with chemicals. Any of those, and it's definitely a good idea to make that call.
So after all is said and done, what's the big takeaway here? It's actually pretty reassuring. For the vast majority of healthy dogs, eating grass is a totally normal, mostly harmless behavior. It's usually not a sign that they're sick. It's more likely just an echo of their wild past, a response to a rumbly tummy, or maybe just something they enjoy doing.
It just goes to show you, right? Behind some of our dogs' weirdest, most puzzling habits, you often find the simplest truths. It really makes you wonder, what other strange thing that they do are we completely misreading?